Enjoying the story? Subscribe and hit the bell to catch every new episode.
The asteroid belt was a graveyard of rock and ice, and Epsilon 7 was its mausoleum. Kalen Vance's boots crunched against the frozen regolith as he made his way toward the seismic array, his breath misting in the thin, recycled air. The colony's habitat dome gleamed dully in the perpetual twilight of the system's distant star, a fragile bubble of life adrift in the void. Inside, the hum of machinery was a constant reminder of their corporate overlords. Omnicorp, who saw Epsilon 7 not as a home, but as a resource to be strip-mined until it was nothing but dust. Kalen wasn't a miner. He was a geologist, one of the few Omnicorp deemed useful enough to keep around. His job was simple: map the asteroid's internal structure, identify mineral deposits, and report back to the suits on Earth. But Kalen had a different agenda. He'd spent years poring over fragmented data from old Earth probes, whispers of a forgotten past buried beneath layers of corporate propaganda. Earth, he'd discovered, had once been a prison planet, a dumping ground for life forms deemed too dangerous to exist elsewhere. And Epsilon 7, he suspected, was connected. The seismic array hummed softly as he approached, its sensors embedded deep in the asteroid's crust. Omnicorp had installed it to monitor for mining-induced fractures, but Kalen had repurposed it for something far more ambitious. He was listening to the asteroid's heartbeat, searching for patterns the corporation had missed. And he'd found something that didn't belong. He pulled up the latest data on his wrist-mounted terminal, the screen glowing in the dim light. The readings were chaotic, jagged spikes of energy that defied geological explanation. It wasn't tectonic activity. It was something else, something alive. "Vance, you're late," barked Lena Petrova, the colony's chief engineer. She stood by the airlock, arms crossed, her glare sharp enough to cut through the asteroid's vacuum. Omnicorp didn't tolerate delays, and Lena, ever the loyal enforcer, made sure everyone knew it. "Just checking the array," Kalen replied, his voice flat. He'd learned long ago that showing emotion around Lena was a mistake. She thrived on control, and any sign of weakness was an invitation to exploit. "The corporation wants the Western Quadrant mapped by end of shift. No exceptions." She shoved a data chip into his hand. "Don't make me come looking for you again." Kalen pocketed the chip without a word. Lena's threats were empty. Omnicorp valued his skills too much to risk losing him. But he knew better than to push his luck. As she stormed off, he turned his attention to the seismic data again. The spikes were growing stronger, more frequent. Whatever was down there, it was waking up. He made his way to the Western Quadrant, the mining drones already boring into the rock, their drills shrieking like tortured beasts. The air was thick with dust and the smell of ozone. Kalen ignored the noise, his focus entirely on his handheld scanner. The energy signatures were clearer here, clustered around a deep fissure in the crust. He knelt, brushing away the loose rubble. The rock beneath his hands was unnaturally warm, and as he pressed his palm against it, he felt a faint vibration, a low, resonant thrum that seemed to pulse in time with his own heartbeat. It wasn't natural. It was a language. Back in the habitat dome, Kalen spent hours cross-referencing the seismic data with old Earth archives. The corporation had scrubbed most of the planet's history, but fragments remained. Legends of silent ones who communicated through the stone, of prisoners banished to the void. The vibrations matched. Exactly. He pulled up a file labeled Project Chimera, a top-secret Omnicorp initiative from the late 22nd century. The documents were heavily redacted, but one line stood out. Asterisk subject designation, lithivores. Communication method, subsonic resonance. Threat level, extinction, asterisk. Lithivores. Silicon-based life forms that consumed rock and communicated through seismic waves. And they were on Epsilon 7. Kalen's blood ran cold. If the lithivores were here, it meant Omnicorp knew. They'd known all along and hadn't told anyone. The colony wasn't just a mining operation, it was a prison. And they were the inmates. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see Lena standing in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "What are you looking at, Vance?" "Nothing," he lied, quickly closing the file. She didn't buy it. Her eyes narrowed. "Omnicorp doesn't like secrets. Especially not from you." "I'm just doing my job," he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. Just remember who signs your paycheck, she warned before turning and walking away. Kalen knew he couldn't trust her, but he also knew he couldn't do this alone. He needed someone who understood the science, someone who would listen. Dr. Eris Thorne was the colony's xenobiologist, a man whose mind was as sharp as the rocks they mined. Kalen found him in the lab, surrounded by samples of alien flora and fauna, his face illuminated by the glow of a microscope. Eris, Kalen said, stepping into the room. I need your help. Eris didn't look up. If this is about the mining quotas, talk to Lena. I'm busy. It's not about quotas, Kalen insisted. It's about what's in the rock. Finally, Eris looked up, his brow furrowed. The rock is just rock, Vance. That's what we're here for. Kalen pulled up the seismic data on his terminal. This isn't rock. It's communication. Complex, structured. Look at the patterns. Eris studied the screen, his expression shifting from skepticism to curiosity. This shouldn't be possible. Nothing organic can produce resonance like this. Unless, he trailed off, his eyes widening. Unless it's not organic. Silicon-based, Kalen finished. Lithivores. They're down there. And they're waking up. Eris stood up, his earlier indifference replaced by urgency. Omnicorp knows about this. They have to. This is why they sent us here. Not to mine, but to contain. Kalen nodded. We need proof. Something we can take to the colony. Something that shows them what's really happening. Eris looked at him, a new respect in his eyes. Then we'd better get started. Before they silence us both. The fissure was deeper than Kalen had anticipated, the walls narrowing until they were barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. The air grew thick with the smell of ozone and something else, something metallic, like blood, but colder. Eris followed close behind, his scanner whirring as it took readings. The energy levels are off the charts, he muttered. Whatever this is, it's not natural. Kalen pressed forward, his hand against the wall, feeling the vibrations more intensely now. They weren't random anymore. They were rhythmic, purposeful. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and a low groan echoed through the tunnel, like the sound of a giant shifting in its sleep. They're close, Eris said, his voice tight with fear. Kalen didn't answer. He kept moving, his heart pounding in his chest. Around a bend, he saw it, a cavern vast enough to swallow the entire habitat dome. And in the center, something moved. It was a creature of living crystal, its body pulsing with an internal light, its limbs shifting like liquid rock. It stood on 6 spindly legs, its head a mass of jagged facets. And as it turned, Kalen saw its eyes, black, empty voids that seemed to absorb the light. The lithivore let out a sound that wasn't a roar or a scream, but a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through the very bones of Kalen's body. It was a language, and it was speaking directly to him. The lithivore moved with terrifying grace, its crystalline limbs scraping against the rock as it advanced. Eris stumbled backward, his scanner clattering to the ground. Kalen, we need to go. But Kalen stood frozen, mesmerized by the creature. The vibrations in the floor weren't just a language, they were a memory. A flood of images crashed into his mind, a world of glass and fire, beings of pure energy, and then darkness. Exile, the prison planet, Earth. The lithivore stopped a few feet away, its head tilting. It was studying him, and in that moment, Kalen understood. They weren't just communicating, they were connecting. It's Earth, Kalen whispered, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. They're from Earth. They're the prisoners. The lithivore's hum shifted, softer now, almost mournful. It wasn't an attack. It was a greeting. A plea. Eris grabbed Kalen's arm, pulling him back. Vance, snap out of it. That thing's not here to make friends. But Kalen shook him off. No, you don't understand. They're not the enemy. We are. The lithivore took another step, its body glowing brighter. The vibrations intensified, and Kalen felt a surge of energy, not hostile, but urgent. It was showing him something. A map. Coordinates. A way home. But before he could process it, a deafening explosion tore through the cavern. Dust and debris filled the air, and the lithivore let out a shriek of pain as a chunk of its crystalline arm shattered. Lena stood at the entrance of the cavern, a plasma rifle smoking in her hands. Her face was a mask of cold fury. I should have known you'd be involved in this, Vance. Kalen stared at her, the pieces clicking into place. You knew. All along. You were here to make sure they stayed contained. Omnicorp's orders, Lena said, her voice devoid of emotion. The lithivores are too dangerous to be allowed to spread. They're a threat to every colony in the system. They're not a threat, Kalen shouted, gesturing at the wounded creature. They're prisoners, just like us. Lena laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Don't be naive, Vance. Omnicorp doesn't build prisons. They build graves. She raised her rifle again, but before she could fire, the lithivore lashed out. Its remaining arm struck the rock wall, sending a shockwave through the cavern. Lena stumbled, her rifle clattering to the ground. Eris seized the moment, grabbing Kalen's arm. We have to go? Now. They scrambled back through the tunnel as the lithivore's cries echoed behind them. Kalen risked one glance back and saw the creature collapse, its light dimming as the vibrations faded. They'd heard it, maybe killed it. And for what? Corporate profit? When they finally emerged into the mining shaft, Lena was already there, waiting, her expression grim. You two just made a huge mistake. The habitat dome was in chaos when they returned. Alarms blared, and red lights flashed as colonists scrambled to evacuate. Omnicorp had initiated the protocol, sterilization. The colony was to be purged, and all evidence of the lithivores erased. Kalen and Eris raced to the comms center, where Lena stood over the main console, her fingers flying across the controls. It's too late, she said without looking up. The self-destruct sequence is active. 10 minutes until detonation. Why? Eris demanded. Why destroy everything? Lena finally turned to face them, her eyes hard. Omnicorp can't risk the lithivores getting out. If anyone finds out what they really are, what Earth really was, it's over for them. Kalen's mind raced. The lithivores had shown him a way home, a way to expose the truth. But with the colony about to be destroyed, how could he use it? He pulled up the seismic data on his terminal, the coordinates still fresh in his mind. The lithivores gave me something. A signal. If I can broadcast it, maybe. Broadcast what? Lena scoffed. Your fairy tale about crystal monsters? The truth, Kalen said, his voice firm. About Earth. About Omnicorp. About everything. Eris stepped forward. He's right. If we can get that signal out, someone will listen. Someone has to. Lena hesitated, her resolve faltering. For the first time, Kalen saw doubt in her eyes. She'd been Omnicorp's puppet for too long, but maybe, just maybe, she was tired of being a part of their lies. Fine, she said finally. But we don't have much time. I'll reroute power to the long-range transmitter. You'll have one shot. The comms center was a whirl of activity as Lena worked to bypass the self-destruct protocols. Kalen and Eris huddled over the terminal, preparing the signal. The countdown timer on the wall ticked down, 5 minutes left. Got it, Lena said, sweat beading on her forehead. Transmitter is online. You've got 1 minute. Kalen took a deep breath, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. The coordinates were etched in his mind. X, 7, Y, 23, Z, 91. The lithivore's homeworld. Earth. He typed the command, and the signal sent. A wave of energy pulsed through the asteroid, carrying the truth of their existence into the void. Suddenly, the alarm stopped. The red lights flickered and died, replaced by the soft glow of the emergency lights. The self-destruct sequence had been aborted. Lena stared at the console, her face pale. They stopped it. What? Kalen knew. The lithivores had heard. They'd intervened. As if in response, a new signal appeared on the terminal, a reply. The vibrations were different this time. Clear. Hopeful. They're thanking us, Eris whispered, tears streaming down his face. Kalen watched as the signal strengthened, a beacon of truth in the darkness. They'd done it. They'd broken the silence. But the fight wasn't over. Omnicorp would come. They'd send more ships, more enforcers. But for now, they had won. The asteroid fell silent, the only sound the hum of the transmitter, a reminder that some truths were too powerful to be silenced. And somewhere, in the depths of the rock, the lithivores slept, waiting for the day they would be free. Kalen looked at Lena, then at Eris, a small smile touching his lips. We told them, he said, and they listened. And in the cold vacuum of space, the truth finally had a voice.
Hope you enjoyed that one. Smash subscribe for daily HFY sci-fi stories.